Hi guys. Today we'll be looking at one of the most missed concepts in AP psychology, classical conditioning. Believe me, if you get a question on a free response which asks you to train a dog via classical conditioning, you do not want to mess that up. I've actually seen a paper returned with a single line. This is operant conditioning. So in this video, we're going to go over the main concepts of classical conditioning in particular, so that you're clear and won't get confused even if you get any different scenario. First off, classical conditioning is a type of learning. In psychology, learning is defined as a relatively permanent behavior change due to experience. When we hear classical conditioning, we think of Pavlov and dogs, or at least I do. Well, the premise of classical conditioning is linking stimulus and response, or teaching someone or something to sense a stimulus and produce a desired response. So it sounds pretty straightforward to begin with. Now how this works is that we are all built with internal, almost instinctual stimulus-response combinations. For instance, when you see a picture of the most appealing, luscious-looking ice cream fudge banana split sundae topped with cherries, I guarantee that even if you don't consciously realize it, you will salivate just a little bit. In this situation, this amazing ice cream sundae you see right here, that functions as the unconditioned stimulus, or US, because it triggers this feeling in you without you even thinking about it. It just happens. Now what just happens is known as the unconditioned response, or UR, your salivation. You see the ice cream, the stimulus, and without planning, you salivate a little. This is your body's unconditioned response. Now, Ivan Pavlov knew that these stimulus-response combinations exist. So like any good psychology scientist, he sought to manipulate them, particularly with his dogs. He observed his dogs salivate, so in this case that would be an unconditioned response, when he gave them food, or their dog food in particular, so that would be the unconditioned stimulus. He then decided to ring a bell each time he gave his dog some food. In this case, he was adding another stimulus, the bell. This added stimulus is known as the conditioned stimulus, or CS, because it's not exactly instinctual. It's added. It's almost unnatural in a certain way. So in this case, he added this unnatural or conditioned stimulus, which was the bell. Can you guess what happened next? I'll give you a second just to think about the situation so far. Alright, so after a little while, Pavlov's dog began to salivate merely upon hearing a bell, even if no food was given to him. Now his salivation, which has changed somewhat due to from the original salivation because it was triggered by the bell, is a conditioned response, or CR, because he has learned to salivate upon hearing the bell, a conditioned stimulus. Just like that, before you know it, the dog has made a change in his behavior by salivating unconsciously when he hears a bell. And this is exactly what learning in the psychological sense entails, making a change in behavior. Essentially, what Pavlov has done is he has trained his dog, or classically conditioned his dog, to hear a bell and salivate by associating the bell with another stimulus, food, which would have caused the dog to salivate in the first place. The nuance or tricky part about classical conditioning is understanding that it does not ever deal with reward or punishment. That's a different kind of conditioning, known as operant. For example, when you get something for doing well and get in trouble for doing bad, that's different. And we'll save that for another lesson. But the important thing to realize here is that classical conditioning often happens below your consciousness or your conscious level. So even right now, you might be associating two things without thinking about a reward. And that's really a key fact to recognize, that classical conditioning merely deals with associating stimulus and response. But more importantly, Where does classical conditioning come into your daily life? Here's an example. And I'm sure that if you can fill out this table here with the unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, conditioned stimulus, and conditioned response, I'd say you're good to go for this topic. Okay, so here's a scenario that's happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to many of you. Every time you go to your eye doctor, they set you up with that little machine where they have to measure like the air pressure around your eye, and so the eye doctor delivers a little air puff, and every time he does that, you blink. But before he delivers the puff, the machine sounds a distinct beep. So soon, you end up blinking to the beep alone, even when no air puff is going to follow for your eye. Go ahead and identify the US, UR, CS, and CR, and I'll give you a minute to fill it in. All right. If you said the unconditioned stimulus was the air puff, then you're right. The air puff causes you to react in a way, or blink in this case, almost instinctively. In the same way, it just follows then that your blink would be the unconditioned response. The tone is what is added in. The beep is the extra stimulus that is being added. So that makes it the conditioned stimulus. In other words, it teaches you to do something you normally wouldn't have done. And once again, the blink is also the conditioned response. Almost every time in classical conditioning, the unconditioned response and conditioned responses are the same. Why? Because you're looking for the same response, but with two different stimuli, one natural and one learned, to get there. So with this simple understanding of classical conditioning is how so much psychological learning and training goes on. We train animals in this way, and I mean, maybe someday we'll even be able to use it on humans more effectively. Kind of a scary thought. But anyway, I hope this helps make classical conditioning more clear. Thank you for watching.